There's this moment, I've watched it happen maybe 1,000 times in over 20 years of practice. It doesn't show up on an x-ray and it doesn't show up on a blood panel, and there's no billing code for it. It's the moment a person sits down across from me and they've done everything right. They took the medication, they did the protocol, they cut out the gluten, they got the imaging, they saw the specialist, and they saw the second specialist. They followed instructions from people with letters. They could make the alphabet behind their name, and they did it faithfully, sometimes for years. And they look at me and they say some version of the same sentence. It's not working anymore. And here's what I've learned. That sentence is almost never actually about the medication. I think that moment is failure. I've come to think of that moment as an invitation. Sometimes it's not wanted. It's the door. It's uncomfortable, it's frightening, and it's almost always the exact place where the real work actually has to begin. That moment is what this show is all about. Welcome to the practice. 30 years in health and wellness, a degree in health management with an emphasis of fitness and sports medicine, a doctor of chiropractic, and then a long road after that. Applied kinesiology, acupuncture, quantum physics, functional medicine. The quantum physics wasn't the popular kind of today. It's the real study, meditating on beaches in Cancun, going to Greece to meditate with people, metaphysical medicine, and spiritual health. That's the resume. But here's the honest version. I started out believing the body was a machine. I loved it, a very sophisticated machine, but a machine, levers and pulleys and fuel and wiring. Fix the mechanics, restore the function, right? That's the belief. It served me really well. I was good at what I did and still good at it. I can find a subluxation. I can read the gait. I can put my hands on the spine and tell you things about your life you haven't told anybody. But somewhere in year 8 or 9, the machine model started to run out of room because I'd adjust the same segment on the same person week after week, month after month, and it'd hold for about 3 days and then it'd go back. And it wasn't a technique problem. It wasn't a compliance problem. Something just kept putting it back. And that's when I started asking a different question. Not what's wrong with this structure, but what is this structure missing, or what is this structure holding? That question changed my entire career. And it's the question this podcast is built on. So let's talk about the name, the practice. Let's look at how it's written, the word that's buried inside, because a practice is not a belief. A practice is not a philosophy you agree with while your life stays exactly the same and you're doing the exact same things every day. A practice is something that you do repeatedly, imperfectly, on the days you don't feel like doing it, especially on the days you don't feel like doing it. And I have a practice, the clinic, the one with the front desk and the appointment times. And I also have a practice, the internal one, the one that nobody schedules for me. Same word. And I don't think that's an accident of the English language. I think the word is trying to tell us something. The subtitle is The Art of Becoming. And I want to be precise about why I choose the word art. Healing is not a science that we happen to be bad at. Healing is an art that happens to use science. Science gives us the pigments, chemistry, physiology, biomechanics, lab values. Those are real, those are precise, and I will never disrespect them on this show. But nobody ever painted anything worth looking at by memorizing the chemical composites of the paint. The art is in the application. The art is in the timing, the sequencing, the knowing when to push and when to leave it alone. The art is in the relationship between the person and their own body. The art is made, which means healing is not something that happens to you. It's something you actually have to participate in. I think sometimes we forget that. That's the whole thesis. Everything else in this show is a footnote to that. So let me tell you what I think went wrong. And I want to be careful here because this is the part where people expect me to throw rocks at medicine. And I'm just not going to do that. Modern medicine is one of the most extraordinary achievements of the human species. If I'm in a car accident on I-40 tonight, do not take me to a meditation retreat. Take me to the trauma center, surgical center, the emergency medicine, infectious disease. These are miracles. I've seen them work on myself as well as family members. And the people who practice these working miracles, they're amazing. And I've referred patients out to them, and I'm going to keep referring patients out to them when it's clinically necessary. Medication is not the enemy. If you're on medication, this is not a show telling you to stop. Please hear me clearly. Nothing that I say in the next 20 minutes is medical advice, and nobody should change a prescription just because some podcaster made them feel something. Have that conversation with your prescriber. And that's not a legal disclaimer. I actually mean that. Here's the thing I actually want to say. Medication, it holds the line. It's very, very good at holding a line. It buys you time. It lowers the water level. It keeps the crisis from becoming a catastrophe. But holding the line is not the same thing as building a life. And what I've watched happen over and over for 20 years is that people get so relieved by the line being held that they stop building. The symptom quiets down and the quiet gets mistaken for resolution. And 10 years go by and the dose goes up, or another medication is added to help that medication, or sometimes I've seen the third medication is there to help that medication. And then one day the person's sitting in my office saying, it's not working anymore. It was never not working. It was doing exactly what it was designed to do. It was holding the line. You can quiet it. You can take the edge off, and you can make it survivable. And sometimes survival is exactly what you needed. And that's a legitimate goal. And I am not minimizing it. But at some point, and it's different for everybody, it might be a year or 2 or 20. At some point, the body stops accepting the arrangement, gets louder. It moves the symptom somewhere else. The back pain resolves and the gut goes. The gut settles and the sleep goes. The sleep comes back, and now there's a heaviness in the chest that no cardiologist can find. That's not a system failing. That's a system escalating because it hasn't been heard. I want to name the other half of this because it's not just the doctors. Let's take some accountability here. It's us. We outsourced our bodies. We handed them over. Somewhere along the way, we decided that the person who knows the most about our body is a person who literally spent 5 minutes with it and maybe didn't even look up from the clipboard or the computer. You've spent every minute of your life with it. You know things. You knew something was wrong months before the test confirmed it. You knew that job was killing you before the labs got weird. And you knew that relationship was in your stomach. Let's be honest, you knew. And you talked yourself out of it because that knowing didn't come with a citation. This show, in large part, is about giving you permission to trust that again, while still using every tool the outside world has to offer. Both. Let me be clear, not either, both. All right, so we're going to start off with a basic structure and expand on this later. So let me give you the structure I actually work from at the beginning, because I don't want this to be just vibes. I want you to be able to use something today. I think a human being is like a house with 3 floors, and all 3 floors are load bearing. The first floor is the structure. It's made of the bone and the fascia and the nerve. This is my home field. This is where I put my hands on the spine, and it's not just scaffolding. It's the housing for the entire central nervous system, which is the interpretive organ for your whole experience of being alive. When structure's compromised, interpretation is compromised. A body in mechanical distress cannot accurately assess when it's safe. And sometimes it will read a work email like it's a predator. The second floor is chemistry and hormones and neurotransmitters and blood sugar, inflammation, the gut, everything living in it. Nutrient status, toxic load. This floor is where most modern medicine lives. And it's also where functional medicine lives too. It's real. It's your mood is not separate from your blood sugar. Your anxiety is not separate from your thyroid. Anyone who tells you otherwise is definitely selling you something. And the third floor is the one this show exists for, tying it together. Emotion, thought, spirit, meaning. The stories that you're running that you don't even know that are running in your neurology of your brain. So here's the part that took me 15 years to fully understand and embody. Most practices pick a floor. Chiropractors live on 1, prescribers live on 2, therapists and pastors and coaches live on 3, and each of them will genuinely help you right up to the ceiling of their floor. And then you plateau. Because the plateau's almost never on the floor you're standing. The plateau's on the floor that nobody's looking at. And that's why the adjustment doesn't hold. That's why the supplement stopped working. That's why the therapy is insightful, but your shoulder still hurts. And these floors are not metaphors stacked politely on top of each other. They're wired together. That's not mysticism anymore. That's the vagus nerve. That's the HPA axis. That's the gut-brain axis. That's psychoneuroimmunology, a field with actual journals and actual replication. The mechanism is not in dispute anymore. What's still in dispute, though, is what you're supposed to do about it. That's the gap this show is trying to stand in. So let's be practical. I want to give you the single most useful tool I've got. You might not understand it at the beginning, but that's why we're going to evolve and go over this within episodes after episodes. I want to hand it to you on this first episode, though, because I don't believe in making people wait for the good part. Let me pull it up for you. It's the ladder. It's 22 rungs. At the top, rung 1 is freedom, joy, appreciation, love. At the bottom is rung 22 is fear and grief, despair and powerlessness. And in between, in order, is passion, enthusiasm, positive expectation, optimism, hopefulness, contentment, boredom, pessimism, frustration, overwhelmment, disappointment, doubt, worry, blame, discouragement, anger, revenge, hatred and rage, jealousy, insecurity, guilt, unworthiness, and then the bottom. Now, most people hearing that immediately do one thing that I need you not to do. They look at the top and they think, that's where I'm supposed to be. And actually, then they look where they are and sometimes down around rung 16, and they add a brand new layer of self-judgment on top of the discouragement that they already had. Congratulations, you've just made it worse for yourself. Here's the rule. This is the most important sentence of this episode. You cannot jump. You can only climb one rung, at least when you're getting started. If you are in despair, joy is not available to you. It's not even on the menu. Somebody telling some person in genuine grief to choose joy is actually doing violence with good intentions. It's not reachable, and the failure to reach, it becomes more evidence for the despair. But anger is reachable from despair, and that's why this is going to sound wrong until you actually watch it happen. But anger is progress. Look at what anger actually is. Despair is nothing can be done, no movement. Anger is this should not be. Anger has an opinion. Anger has energy. Anger has direction. Anger is movement, returning to the system that it previously stopped moving. Patients who couldn't get off the couch for 8 months and finally get furious. And I literally want to celebrate. And their families alarmed because now they're angry all the time. No, now they're mobile. Anger is not a home. Nobody should live there. But it is an absolute wrong, and it's upwards from where they were. Just needs to be taught on how to manage it. So the actual practice is 3 steps, and it takes about 90 seconds. 1, we're going to be authentic and honest with ourselves. Locate yourself honestly, not where you wish you were, not where you're telling your mom you are, where you actually are right now. Name the rung. 2, look at the rung directly above it. 1, not 4, 1. Part 3, reach for that. Find a thought that feels like that rung and see if your body will take it. And here's how you know it worked. This is the piece almost nobody ever gets. It took me forever to understand this. The signal's relief. It's not joy. You're not looking for a rush. You're not looking for a breakthrough. You're looking for a sense of something in your chest or your gut slight slack, a quarter turn loosening. That's it. That's the whole confirmation. If you're waiting for fireworks, you'll walk right past the actual healing every single time. Relief is quiet. Relief is unremarkable. Relief will not post well. Relief is how the body says, yes, that is the right direction. Now, I want to show you what this looks like when it gets personal, because I'm going to teach you a tool that I wouldn't teach you a tool that I wouldn't use on myself. Tell you two things about my own human design. My motivation is guilt. That is very true. In most frameworks, that would sound like a diagnosis. It's not. It's my engine. Guilt for me is the sensation that arrives when I'm out of alignment with something I actually care about. It's discernment. It's a compass needle. But guilt does have two modes, and that's really important. The difference between them is the difference between my living life and me living in a prison. Guilt as discernment says, that was out of integrity. Correct it and move. It points forward. It moves up the ladder. It gives relief. Guilt as a debt. You are the kind of person who does that. It points backward. It has no exit. It will keep me pinned to rung 22 for the next 30 years. Same feeling, same physical sensation in the body, completely different function. And learning to tell them apart in the first 3 seconds is one of the most valuable skills I've ever developed for myself. There's something called the transference. We'll get into that later, but mine's hope. It's not where I'm supposed to live. Hope is rung 6. It's up in the good part, right? But for me, it's not really a good place for me to live. But to other people, it feels holy, and it is holy. So nobody ever questions it. But look at what hope actually is for me. Hope is reaching for something outside of myself, which I'm not supposed to do. Hope is often the sound of my mind trying to negotiate with an answer my body already gave me. My body knows. It responds immediately in the gut, before language. And when I don't like the answer, I don't argue with it. I get hopeful. I'll hope it'll turn out differently. I'll hope they'll change. God, that was such a resonance in my life. And I hope the next test will say something else. And hope buys me 6 more months of not moving up the ladder. So the question I've learned to ask myself, and I ask it out loud in the car like a lunatic, is, am I hopeful, or am I actually avoiding an answer I already have? I'm telling you this for a reason. Not because you have my design. You almost certainly don't. I'm telling you because you have one. You have a specific engine and a specific escape hatch. And the escape hatch always disguises itself as a virtue. Nobody's avoidance strategy shows up wearing a villain costume. It shows up as patience, as being reasonable, as waiting for the right time, as hope. Find yours. That's assignment number 1. Now, here's where I'm going to lose some of you. And I finally made peace with that. When you're ready to hear it, you'll hear it. Because the ladder isn't just psychology. Every one of those rungs has an address in your tissues. This isn't new, and it's definitely not mine. Chinese medicine mapped this out 2,000 years ago, and it's been remarkably consistent. Neuroemotional technique is the technique that brought it into my life, mapping it into a clinical framework I've used in practice for years. And Western language has been carrying the whole system the whole time without noticing it. We just call it idioms, right? We say, I can't stomach this. We say, he's got no spine. We say, that's a gut punch. We say, she's got a lot of nerve. He vents with his spleen. My blood is boiling. I've got a heavy heart. It's a pain in my neck. Every culture on earth flies emotion in the body. We decide whether it's poetry or whether we don't think it's poetry. I think it was actually reporting. So let me give you the map, roughly, with the caveat that this is a reference framework, not a diagnosis. Nobody should hear this and go looking this up for an organ disease. But generalities: anger, frustration, irritation, liver and gallbladder. It's wood, right ribs, jaw, tight neck, temples, waking 1 or 2 in the morning for no reason at all. The clenched right shoulder blade that never resolves no matter how many times I've worked on it. Next up is worry, overwhelm, pessimism, spleen and pancreas, the earth. Rumination lives in the middle. Foggy head, sugar cravings, heavy limbs, blood sugar that swings for no reason. The diet just won't explain it. Overthinking is not just a mental event, it's a metabolic one. Grief and disappointment is lung, large intestine, metal, shallow breathing, upper chest, the half breath. People who've lost something and don't know it yet often stop breathing all the way down in their bodies, and they've done it for years. Fear is kidney and bladder. It's water. It's low back. It's cold feet. It's urgency. It's adrenals are flat. That specific hollowed out exhaustion that sleep just doesn't touch. And last but not least, guilt and unworthiness. Large intestine and the heart, the lower gut and bowel changes, the things we hold and won't release, and the organ system whose entire job is holding and releasing. I need to be honest with you about epistemics here, because I'd rather be trusted than impressive. This map is not established by a randomized control trial. The meridian system is a clinical model, not a proven anatomical structure. And there are serious people who think it's a metaphor. I use it because it's been reliable in my hands across 2 decades and thousands of patients. But reliable in my hands is a real form of evidence, and it also is not the same as proof. You should hold it the way I hold it, as a lens that works, not a law that's settled. What is not in dispute is the underlying claim. Emotional states produce measurable physiological change in specific systems. Chronic stress alters gut motility, immune function, cortisol rhythm, inflammatory signals, pain thresholds. That's textbook. The map is one language for organizing something everybody is already agreeing is happening. And that's the practical payoff, which is the only reason I'm giving you any of this. Runs in both directions. If your low back has been screaming for 8 months and nothing structural explains this, it's worth looking at what you're afraid of, not instead imaging in addition to. If your jaw is locked and your right ribs won't release and you've had 3 adjustments and they didn't hold, it's worth asking, who are you angry at and who haven't you told? If your breath won't go all the way down, it's worth asking what you lost and never grieved. Sometimes the tissue is an entry point. Sometimes the emotion is. The art, and this is the art part, is knowing which door to use on which day with which person. That's not something you learn from a protocol. That's something you learn from paying attention for a very long time. So here's where the practice is going and what it's going to be. Some episodes, I'll go deep into structures, actual mechanics, actual anatomy, what your spine is doing, and why it matters more than what you've been told. Some episodes will be chemistry, sleep, blood sugar, inflammation, the gut, the practical stuff. And some episodes will be the third door, emotion, meaning, spirit, the ladder, the things that they just can't scan. And for my favorite part, a lot of the episodes will be all 3 at once, because that's how it actually works in the body. I'll bring on guests, physicians, acupuncturists, therapists, energy workers, people who disagree with me also, especially those who disagree with me, because a conversation where everybody nods is entertainment, not inquiry. 3 promises that I give you. 1, I won't insult medicine and I won't worship it. Both of those are laziness. I'll tell you what the evidence says and when I'm operating past the evidence on clinical experience and intuition. And I will tell you when I'm doing that. You will always know which source you're getting it from. 2, nothing here is a substitute for care. Not your physician, not your therapist, and not your prescriber. This is education. If you're in crisis, please reach out for a human being, not a podcast. And if you're somewhere near the bottom letter rung tonight and it's getting really dark, I need you to call or text 988. That line exists exactly for that moment, and they are amazing human beings helping each other out. 3, every episode leaves you with something to do, not something to believe, something to do. It's in the name. So here's your practice for this week. Takes about 90 seconds. Once a day, like right before sleep, or whenever you actually can get to it, ask yourselves 2 questions. Where am I on the ladder? Honestly, no performance, nobody's watching except you. And what's one rung up? Reach for it and then pay attention to your chest and your gut and wait for the quarter turn release of slack. Not joy, relief. That's it. That's the whole assignment. Do it 7 times and you'll know more about your operating system than most people do in a decade. There's a line I keep coming back to. It's from Gene Key 55, the 4th line. It's actually in my chart. Freedom is not a rung. It's your relationship to the whole ladder. You're not trying to get to the top and stay there. Nobody stays there. Anyone selling you permanent residency at that rung is selling you something that's not real. You're trying to become someone who can move, who knows where they are, who knows which way is up, and who doesn't panic when they slip because they understand that slipping is part of the climbing and it always has been. That's becoming. That's the art. And it's the practice, which means you don't have to be good at it. You just have to do it again tomorrow. I'm glad you're here, and I hope you come back next week. This has been The Practice.